this video, I'm going to transform a 2D vector into a 3D object using Adobe Illustrator. So first I'm going to create a new file, choose web, and then I'm going to name my file, set the width and height. So with my new file created, I'm going to name this layer background. And then I'm going to go select the rectangle tool and draw out a rectangle shape. And that will be for my background. Expand this layer. So I'll just remove the stroke and I'm going to give it a fill. And now with that set, I'm going to just lock that layer, create a new layer. And I'll name this layer logo. So I could either draw my vector shape. However, I'm going to import my vector shape. I could either import, copy and paste an SVG graphic or drag it onto my artboard. However, I'm going to use the Creative Cloud library as I have the assets already in my library. And then I'm going to go place copy. Then I'm going to switch to the selection tool and I'm going to just center this here. And then I'm going to set a fill. And then with the proportions locked, aspect ratio locked, I'm going to give it a size. I want to ensure that my logo is a compound path, so to do that I'm going to select the go object, compound path make. And with that selected, I'm going to now add a gradient. So I'll go to my gradient panel here, which I've opened, and then I'm going to choose a linear gradient, and then my position over here, give it a color. And for this position over here, I'm going to give it a color. And then I'm going to set the angle to 30. Now this is a vector. So once I turn it into a 3D graphic, it will no longer be a vector, but a 3D object using the 3D animate tool. So to do that, I'm going to go to Effect, 3D Materials, and Extrude and Bevel. And now I have my 3D Materials panel. To 48. A round bevel. And I'm going to leave the preset as off-axis front. Next, I'm going to go to Materials, leave it as the default, and then set the roughness here. Switch to light. The color as white. I'm going to change the intensity. Rotation I'll leave as is. I'll just change this value here. For height and the softness, I'll adjust the softness. Also adjust this, and I'll leave the shadow off. With this logo selected, I'll just go back to my gradient panel here. hide this. Right, so that's my 3D graphic. Under render settings, I'm going to add ray tracing. I'm going to render that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save the style. So I'll select that. I'll switch to graphic styles over here. And then I'm going to choose new graphic style. So to demonstrate that I can apply this graphic style, I'm just going to create a new layer here, call it Smile. And then I'm going to switch to my libraries. I'm going to place a copy of this here. And then with that selected, I'm just make sure there's a compound shape. And then I'll switch back to my graphic styles here, and I'm going to choose graphic style. I can apply this to any 2D vector, and that should apply the 3D graphic to it. So once I'm ready to export my logo, in this case, I can either go to File, Export, choose Export for Screens, Export As, or Save for Legacy. Or I can export it as a 3D object by going to Appearance panel here, select the logo, make sure the 3D materials, I can view it, and then from there I can just go down here. Export 3D object, and that will open the Asset Export panel. And then here I have options for PNG, JPEG, SVG. However, SVG and PDF, these will not be exported as vectors, they will still be a graphic. And I also have additional option for 3D format. However, the only limitation is I don't have the option to export this as a vector. So you can use the 3D Classic options to transform a 2D object into a 3D object. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and take care. Till next time.